breakdown. We're gonna get in and out real quick, just like the Hornets did in the play-in tournament, guys. Anyways, I got a prospect to talk about. Albert's got a prospect to talk about. We're gonna do an agree or disagree segment. I've got 6 different questions. Albert's got 6 questions for me. And we're going to try and keep it short and sweet, which is something I'm not very good at. So it's good practice. You know, practice makes perfect, they say. Reps make perfection. Anyways, Albert, how you doing, buddy? We've had some technical difficulties to get started, and I think we're finally good now.
Yeah, I sure hope so. I'm still pretty good. I mean, when we first recorded this like 5 minutes ago, the sun was still peeking into my window. Now it's completely vanished, but I'll have to do without it, I guess.
Yeah, for the people that don't know, before we get into our first, like I said, I have a prospect. Albert does too. I'm going to talk about Jayden Quaintance. You said you're going to talk about Stirtz, right? The Iowa forward.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, Albert is dedicated, guys. We usually record at 5 p.m. Eastern. It's midnight for Albert. Like, you would never know. That's why I told you, because it's impressive. But you know what? Maybe your lighting's a little bit better. We're not having microphone problems now. I want to talk about Jayden Quaintance because he's kind of an enigma to me right now, thus far. And I mean that in the best way because it's hard not to kind of fall in love with the intangibles, despite the fact that he tore his ACL and essentially didn't play this last season coming out. He's really young. He's about to turn 19 still, which is like what you want if you're in the back half of the lottery and you're trying to take a swing. But I get a little bit worried about Quaintance because it's hard for me. We just saw a Josh Hart tweet the other day talking about analytics, and like this is not a dig at the analytics guys at all because it to me it's a piece of the pie to help you see the whole pie chart. And some people just lean on too much, on one of them or the other too much. But Quaintance has the potential to be a defensive anchor that this team has struggled without, specifically at the power forward spot. As much as I've lauded that we should keep Miles Bridges, despite how unpopular that opinion's been. But his biggest issue was his defensive impact was so unpredictable, and then his offense. By the time Miles was taking less shots, they started winning 9 games in a row after the new year. They were playing better with Miles having less volume, but then he was a defensive liability sometimes at the same time. But you're needing less shots from him to be the best version of your team. So I think Miles is much better suited to come off the bench right away as a 7th man with Kobe White. So I think you're looking for a starting power forward. What worries me about Quaintance is I don't think he's ready for that yet. I mean, you take off a whole season from an injury. You're only 19. I mean, I think 19 was how old Malik Monk was when he came into the league. And Malik Monk, had bundles of potential, and ultimately it took so long for him to figure it out in another place because if everything doesn't mesh just perfectly for a young guy like that, you don't have the perfect vets and the perfect system, which, to give credit to the Hornets, from what we've seen of their system outside of Tijan Salon, I think you could say everybody's been a hit thus far for the most part in terms of development. And so you have to say they're good at developing guys, but are you prepared to bet on, one of your best defenders being 19 years old next season? That's what worries me about Quaintance the most, regardless of what any analytics say about him or the intangibles. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, you've been kind of a proponent of running a double big lineup on this podcast before, and just getting 2 guys onto the court at the same time who can't shoot. And there's a case for that for sure, but you combine the fact that Quaintance, he's not a shooter, so you run him out there with either Musa or Ryan. So you have 2 non-shooters, probably Musa. And then the fact that he's super young, he's, kind of, is he injury prone at this point? You see a lot of videos about him on Twitter, compilations where he's favoring his knee when he comes down from dunks and that kind of stuff. In the end, the Hornets will know best, better than us for sure, because they are holding the draft workouts. They have the intel. They for sure, I don't think will pick him if there's any serious concern about him being a injury prone player long term. And then again, I'm kind of worried about the way he could fit in, even if he's super healthy. I think you kind of have to bring him off the bench. That's just my personal preference, I guess. And so, especially because we did an episode earlier this week about the Michigan prospects, and I think we had some guys in there who probably just fit a little better overall, I'd say.
Now, I'm trying to like put together the type of lineups that Quaintance would be in because I don't want to get it twisted here. Like I see the vision, I do, but if to see the vision, you have to see a world where the starting lineup stays exactly the same next year, and Miles Bridges is your starting four. And in that sense, Quaintance is coming off the bench and more often so running like you said with Kalkbrenner. But if they bring Kobe White back, I like the idea that if we can get a better version of Josh Green than we got on the back half of the season, like if you can have a couple of consistent offensive weapons coming off the pine with Quaintance, it does make a lot more sense. Yeah, I think Quaintance would be electric with LaMelo and Khan, and in those if you just switch him and Bridges, I like what he could do defensively, but then maybe you run small and you run Quaintance at the five, and you still keep Bridges in. Like I think the lineups just get a little bit funky with the size almost, and I think you have to truly love the defensive potential if you love Quaintance, which I'm still kind of teeter tottering on because regardless of what stats say, the eye test does matter, even in a post Moneyball world, I think, and it's hard to think a guy is going to come right in right away when you haven't played, a whole season beforehand. Like we saw it took time for Miles Bridges as a guy who had already
Yeah.
been in the league to like readjust to the speed of the league, the training regimen, the conditioning, all of it. Um, it's going to be worse for a guy that's 19. That's not the only thing you're readjusting to, the pace of play. You're adjusting to, making sure you can get through 82, going to practice every day, keeping your nose clean, like making sure you're eating right, you're moving to a new place. Like we are human beings at the end of the day. And that gets left out of the athlete conversation a lot. And if they take Quaintance, I think they're playing longer term than I think they are. And I think if they're playing longer term than the next 2 years, then I've been hesitant to say this, but if they start making moves like Quaintance, I think it says a lot about they're trying to set up for a world post LaMelo Ball, and that I don't like that. That bothers me a little bit, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that before you talk about Sturts.
Yeah, for sure it would kind of at least show that this front office doesn't believe the team is ready to contend in the next 2 to 3 years, probably. Um, Another thing on the, human part that you mentioned, or just the kind of getting into the NBA as a rookie, Quaintance is a big man. And not to say it's easy to get into the NBA when you're a wing, but as a big man, especially when you're gonna have to defend a lot of pick and rolls, you have to know how to move, you have to adjust to the opponents being way more athletic, way quicker, way better shooters than the guys you face in college. And that's just another aspect of that's gonna get just it's gonna take time getting used to it. Probably a season, 2 seasons at least.
That's an interesting point because that's the last thing I'll say about Quaintance is because if you're bringing him like you didn't bring Sion James in and play. I've said this on the last episode. I think you didn't bring Sion in and play him as much as they did because they loved what he was doing offensively. They did early in the
Yeah.
year when he was making every corner three for the first like month of the season, but when he evened out, they were still playing him because of what he brought defensively, and that says a lot about one that how much they need it, and two how much they're willing to play guys that are capable of doing that on a consistent basis. And I'm not sure what the right off the top of my head what the plus wingspan on Quaintance is, but it's a lot for a guy that's 6'9" and some change. So I'm sitting here talking myself into him on the
As you do with
podcast.
every prospect we talk about.
Listen, listen. This is why I'm not a draft analyst because it is so easy to fall in love with some of these guys, and you get lost in the hype of like the mainstream. This draft is so good, so then that very subtly changes. Like, oh, I got to be like just this much higher on a guy
Yeah.
than I would be in a. I'm not good at clearing all that hype. Talk to me about Sturts, Albert.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sturtz probably that's probably easy to be a more clear-cut prospect than Quaintance because almost everyone in this draft probably is. But Sturtz definitely is one of those clear-cut guys, I think. Undersized point guard out of Iowa, so I'll have to correct you on the earlier uh,
Oh,
titleage you gave him.
that's right. You're right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
but he's
I called
undersized
Jayden.
guy.
I called Jayden Quaintance a human being. I am too. At the end of the day.
Yeah,
Anyways, keep going.
exactly. Um, Undersized guy. He's did a ton offensively for Iowa, and you really can't understate how much he did for them. Incredible amount of self-creation he had to do. He was basically their everything offensively, you can say. I mean, they had a pretty good run in the March Madness this year, so I think people might be a little more familiar with him. Um, he's a guy who has really thrived analytically at the college level, especially his efficiency. If you consider that a lot of this stuff is with not great teammates and a lot of stuff just, coming out of either isolation or drives to the rim. He gets to the rim at an incredible rate. If you think about this is a guy who's, I think, 6'2", 6'3" at most, just gets to the rim at will, still a good shooter. The concern with him is that he's undersized and he's not the strongest. He's not gifted athletically. I see a lot of comparisons for him to Peyton Pritchard, which might just be because they're both, undersized white point guards. But I do think that's not an awful comparison to make. Although Sturtz will have to prove at the NBA level that he can do what he did at the college level.
The jump shot holds. I think the jump shot holds up in the league, and you look at how many pick and rolls this kid operated at Iowa. Like it's insane the efficiency he was. Like the Ringer said, he's the best, pick and roll on ball, screen operator in this maybe in this entire draft, and that's interesting. Sturtz is a good player but more of the Trey Young ilk. Unfortunately, like I think there's also a world where his comp is like a low end Trey Young, but I think he's probably a bit more serviceable, not a positive but serviceable defensively than Trey Young is certainly. And you got to give the kid credit. He led the entire nation in minutes played, like almost 40 a game. So like
He
it's not
played a
like his
ton, yeah.
I was talking about adjusting to the conditioning of it all. Like, if you're looking for a guy that's ready to go bring you, 8.5 points off the bench, I mean, he could probably do that. Like, I think he's going to end up being a candidate potentially for all rookie first team next year, just because he can put the ball in the basket. And like, ultimately, that's what makes guys. That's what makes guys make those teams. Like the kid from Sacramento. Maynard, was that his name?
Renault,
Ended up,
Maxime Renault.
yeah, that's right. Got chosen second team over Kalkbrenner. Didn't really love that, but ultimately it's because he put up more points but didn't contribute to as much winning as Kalkbrenner did. I think Sturtz has the potential to go do what a lot of small guards have done in the NBA for a couple years, but then we're sitting here talking about needing defense in the playoffs. I don't think he does that. And I think if you take Sturtz, you're not bringing Kobe White back, right? Am I wrong for thinking that? Because if you take a guy that needs this kind of volume to be worth playing, do you play him and Kobe together? I don't see that. I don't. I think that means they're probably
Yeah.
trading Josh Green. Anyways. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean you probably do want to at least give him like a good amount of NBA reps early on just to kind of see how he handles that stuff. And then rolling him out with LaMelo is that's not an option defensively. Rolling him out with Kobe White, probably
Not
also
really
not an
either.
option only against like I don't know which lineup they'd have to face to roll those two out together, but I can't even think of one. I think he's, as you said, he's a little bit better defensively than Trae Young, or he's gonna be a little bit better just because who isn't better than Trae Young defensively? Like, I think he's probably like one of the worst defenders in all of the NBA right now. So I
Certainly.
I have some trust in in Sturtz to be that kind of guy you mentioned that can already come off the bench, give you a couple of points, maybe a couple of assists. He's gonna have some bad games early on with a couple of turnovers. It's gonna happen. But especially if he gets to a team like Sacramento, then he'll be a guy who can really make a case for himself for rookie second team at least. Yeah.
I mean, Sacramento loves taking guards like this. They took Davion Mitchell, who was a much better defender to
Sure.
Davion's credit, and still is than Sturtz can be. But they took Halliburton. I mean, ultimately they took Fox. Like this is a right. I think that's a great projection. I think it's right up Sacramento's alley. And if they do stay, okay, in this world, say they take Quaintance at 14, I don't think I mind Sturtz at 18 because in a world where we're talking about Kobe White and Sturtz not being serviceable defensively, like neither LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller sometimes really, but because you have Musa Diabate down there, it makes it more serviceable. And if you have a reserve lineup with Jayden Quaintance and Sion James in it, maybe you're a little bit more okay with potentially rolling out Kobe and Sturtz together. So if he falls, to 18, which I think would be just a small drop for him, I'd consider it. But ultimately, they're definitely taking a big. They've got to
Yeah,
take a big.
for
I'd
sure.
say like a 95% chance they're taking a front court player. So what they do at 18 will say a lot about what they think about the guy at 14. I tell you, if they take two guys that are 6'9", 6'10", like they want. Seems like they want two swings at the plate to make sure they get a guy in the position they need if they end up taking two forwards, especially. I don't know. It's something interesting to watch. There's so many options. This draft is crazier the more and more I dive into it. You have anything else you want to say about Sturts before we do agree disagree?
No, I think we went over both of those guys pretty well. I'm sure we'll talk about a lot of the other guys because, as you said, the draft is so stacked and there's such an even level of talent between probably like pick 8 and 18 kind of. We'll have some more content out in the upcoming weeks, and we'll by the time the draft arrives, I'll be sick of of every single name that's gonna be caught in the lottery just because we're gonna talk about them again and again.
Yeah, just like I talk about Michael Kidd Gilchrist again and again and
Yeah,
again, who
that's
who
way.
is who is one of my comps for Jayden Quaintance.
No, that's I meant to bring this up last time in the podcast we did earlier this week, but we haven't gotten any rules so far. This is the first rule. Every time you mention Michael Kidd Gilchrist, I think you should have to donate either me or a random viewer some money. Like, let's say, start off with $2, and the more you mention him, the higher we get, because it's it's getting to a level that I can't handle personally, and I don't think any of the viewers or listeners can handle it.
Oh yeah, that was funny. That was well done. First off, okay, I submit to this Michael Kidd Gilchrist counter.
I will
And that
remind you in 10
every
minutes.
time. Okay, let's do agree or disagree, man. I'll start. Feel like we got some good ones, honestly. And since we're coming off the draft, I think it's probably fair to start with the draft one to kind of segue into this segment. Albert, agree or disagree? None of the three Michigan lottery projected prospects, Morris Johnson Jr., Axel Lindenberg, and Adai Mara, will be all stars in their career. What do you think? Agree or disagree?
I'd probably agree. I think Morris Johnson, who I'm really high on and who I really like, especially for the Hornets, another guy we talked about earlier this week. He's obviously not a player that's gonna put up huge numbers. If he ever would make an All-Star team, it'd have to be like in a Draymond Green type of way, where he's not getting in for the huge scoring numbers, but more so the defensive impact and the team success, I guess. I guess I could see Yaxel. It really depends if he goes to a bad team. I think if he goes to a team where he can start immediately, can get a lot of shots up, then he could probably make the All-Star team in like 2 years, 1 or 2 years. But if he goes to, let's say, even the Hornets, I think he'll have to, probably be the fourth option behind Brandon, Con, and LaMelo.
Yeah.
And that's not going to be enough for All-Star honors. And then Adaimara, if he hits his ceiling, like the high-end outcome, I could see it. But I think with a player like him, where you have so many variables, like conditioning, if he's going to get injured a ton, if he can stay out of foul trouble, if the passing can translate, if the scoring, especially out of the post-ups, can translate. You have so many variables that you'd have to count on for him to be your all-star. I don't see that happening either. So I think I agree.
I also would tend to agree with that one. I will say outright, we'll both say briefly whether we agree or disagree with
Yeah.
our own statements, but not all of these reflect our own beliefs. I do also agree with that one, though. I will say briefly, you're so right about Yaxel because you mentioned Sacramento. Like, he hits a place like that where he can get shots up and get high volume and get reps, then maybe that changes. And he could be a, 1, 2, potentially 3-time All-Star, but even then, I think that is like the high end for Yaxel probably. Okay, this one is another draft one, and then that is the end of my draft ones. Uh, Agree or disagree, Albert? There are less than 3 players in this draft who have the potential to be as good or better than Cooper Flag.
As good or better than Cooper Flag? That's a much tougher one, I will say, than that first one. Mm, I guess I'll disagree. Just on one hand, I'm not that high on Cooper Flag, which means I still believe he'll be, let's say, 7-time All-Star probably. That's being not that high. I just don't think he'll be like an all-time great necessarily.
Right.
That's all. Um, and then you have a bunch of guys in this class where you can certainly question how they will translate. Cam Boozer has a lot of questions how his play style can work in the NBA. You have AJ DeBanza, who is still a little raw for someone who will potentially go first. You have Darren Peterson, who had this kind of weird saga at Kansas, where he played sometimes and then he got taken out at weird moments. But I do think there's enough guys in this draft, even if you go like to a Darius Acuff, who I'm not a huge fan of, but if he turns into, let's say, a Jalen Brunson type guy through some miraculous efficiency jump, then it can happen. So I do think you probably get to any either way you want to see it. If you like the guards in this draft or the bigs or the forwards, I do think you can still get to like probably 5 guys at least who have a potential to be better than Flag in the end. I think I disagree.
Okay. I leaned more on the agree side with this at first, but Acuff, I'm honestly a lot higher than on Acuff than you are because I mean Brunson is a great comp. The SEC is a tough place to play, and especially defensively at Arkansas, like the kind of money these schools in the SEC are pumping into their programs is absurd. Um, and they've overtaken the ACC in a lot of senses in terms of who's the better college basketball conference. Anyways, I think Devonta's got it, and I think I disagree too. Now I think Devonta's got it. Um, I really think Boozer's got the most potential in this draft. He's probably my favorite player. But I'm also really, really high on Caleb Wilson. Like, I think there's a
Yeah.
world where Caleb Wilson can be like Rasheed Wallace from the 4 spot. Like, I really, really mean that. Like Jermaine O'Neal type of. Jermaine O'Neal's probably a better comp than Wallace, honestly. Like, the athleticism that dude has at his size. I love Caleb Wilson. I really, really do. And Acuff, we're talking about score. I was mentioning scoring gets you picked on rookie teams,
Yeah,
earlier.
for sure.
Like Acuff, I think if we're talking about All Stars and NBA awards, like he's got the potential to put up a lot of points. And now Acuff's the one I'm on the fence about. I don't think he's got Cooper Flag's potential at all, but you could argue all 4 of those top guys do. But I really am not nearly as big on probably Peterson. I watched NC State play Kansas in North Carolina like early in the season, and Isaiah, I think it was Isaiah Collins, maybe is his name, on his own team, like scored 30+ points. He wasn't the best player on his own team that night, and I know we had the situation he wasn't playing here and there. Like I know that it's a bigger picture type thing with Darren Peterson, but I think I like Acuff more than Peterson. I'm gonna be honest with you. Seriously.
Yeah.
I mean that.
One of the one thing I regret really about the Hornets not rising, obviously apart from the fact that they won't get a top four guy or something like that, I really would have liked to like do an episode on Acuff or Keaton Wagler with you. Maybe we'll have to do a Darren Peterson versus Acuff episode just so we can butt heads for 30 minutes straight.
That's a good idea. We'll put that one in in my shirt pocket. And I'll remember that.
All right.
Okay. I asked two, you asked two, and we'll switch back and forth. We have 6 each, so we'll try and keep it moving at a swift pace here.
I have 2 draft ones as well, as you said. First one, a little more general than the ones you had. The NBA should keep the draft/lottery system as it is. Just don't change it. It's fine right now.
I wholeheartedly agree. I could. This could be another episode too, because this grinds my gears out. Let me tell you. Okay. The NBA is really, really frustrating me right here. I wish I could have like Ether on behind me, that dude that was talking about James Harden. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That where he's like, I wish somebody believed in me like Daryl Morey believed in you. Listen, Adam Silver, I did believe in you, man, and I like some of the changes they've made to the lottery, but it really, really grinds my gears that they want to sit here and make tanking a problem, but we're expanding to 2 new cities. The parity right now in the NBA, when we're talking about tanking, it's like I could count them on less than 5 fingers. You know what I mean? Like, how often in the past of the NBA have we talked about like borderline half of the top 10 or more being teams that have legitimately tanked? That's why it got changed, why the lottery system got changed the way it is. And I think we've benefited from the original change that was made to the lottery, as many as there have been over the years. What else bothers me about this is we're sitting here expanding, we're worried about tanking, and nobody has said anything about Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers. If they don't, I'm telling you, and this will be the end of this, because it's a bigger picture than just tanking to me.
For
like
sure.
The NBA is trying to distract and make people forget about this Clippers situation, because if they do not get severely fined for what they did under the table, paying Kawhi Leonard, all hell will break loose in the NBA with the governors. I mean it. I'm so serious too, because if they figure out that Steve Ballmer gets a slap on the wrist for paying millions of dollars illegally to Kawhi Leonard and he gets docked 1 first-round pick, you don't think OKC would do that in a heartbeat?
Yeah.
Well, they don't even need really any of their first-round picks this year, man. Like, you don't think they could afford to get docked a first-round pick to keep the dynasty going? Like, they are sliding it under our noses, and it's so annoying that they're using the lottery and tanking to disguise and expanding. Oh, the Sonics are coming back. No, I want Kawhi, and I want David Stern back. That's what I want. I want David Stern back, because David Stern would have been fed up with what's going on with the Clippers right now. Screw their new arena. Screw the fan section. Like, God, I didn't even see that question. That was off the top. Like, I didn't even see that question in the prep. Goodness gracious, that makes me so mad. Next question, please.
Yeah,
agree.
Agree.
Case. They don't need to change it at all.
If you ever see, the Clippers get docked 1 first-round pick for this, then you can expect Owen to no longer be on the pod, because he's taken to the streets with like a torch and.
No, I'd have a heart attack. That's what I'd be halfway out the door and wouldn't make it. That's
all right. I agree. Just to say that I do think we've had like probably 3 teams this season that really tanked. Like, for example, Indiana. What are they supposed to do if Tyrese is hurt? Can't do anything.
Listen, one more thing. Utah sat guys one time. A bunch of reporters made a big deal out of Utah sitting guys after they traded for Jaren Jackson, and in like 2 weeks later, we get messages from the NBA. Oh, we're changing the lottery. Are you serious? What are you doing? Anyways,
it feels performative. I'll say that much. Yeah.
certainly, and this is not like this. It. Next question.
Next question. My second draft question. Out of the big four, so the guys we mentioned earlier, Dubanza, Boozer, Peterson, and Caleb Wilson, none will ever win an MVP.
Coming from the guy that crafted that Cooper Flag question, you would think this would be an easy answer for me, but oh man. I'm going to agree, but I am very seriously considering not agreeing because I think all it takes is one of these guys that everybody is like drooling over is going to hit on the high end of their potential. And as an MVP level, no, but there's a lot of good players in the league right now, and I'm going to disagree for that reason. Agree.
Who's the guy you think would be most likely to win it out of the four?
Probably Boozer.
Yeah, I
As
think
much
that's
as
fair.
we've seen a return of the big men and the value of big men, Boozer's got that potential. And I'll say this: we did the Hornets Rewind the other night over on Sports CLT that we're doing every Thursday at 8, and Larry Johnson, like I posted the highlight on Hornets Historian, they made this insane layup, and somebody mentioned comparing Larry Johnson to Zion a little bit, and that intrigued me at first. Not because I think they're apples to apples, but Larry lacked the sheer athleticism that Zion did, but Larry Johnson was like ridiculously strong. And what I think gets forgotten about the eras and what I like about Boozer's potential and Caleb Wilson for what it's worth is that they remind me. Everybody talks about Musa being chiseled. Like you're watching these old Hornets games. Muggsy's calves are the size of your head. You know what I mean? Like Alonzo Mourning looks like two Musas. Like Larry Johnson is ripped. Like they weren't doing these balancing on yoga balls, catching stuff like SGA was doing the other day that I saw on Twitter. Like they were in there bench pressing and leg pressing themselves to death. Like they were another level of strong. As much as the athleticism now, I think is better. Guys just it's not the focus as much as lateral quickness. It's explosiveness more so than it is like just being sheer strong. That led to a lot of back injuries like LJ had and stuff. But Caleb Wilson especially would probably be my second pick for what it's worth. Turn of the big men, turn of the 2000s. Come on.
Caleb Wilson wouldn't be my second pick, but I agree on Boozer. I think if he works out, if he gets to a franchise that uses him the right way, develops him the right way, can really develop young players in the first place, he has the potential to be like a real two-way force, and especially his mixture of skill and athleticism and feel for the game, it's great. Let's do this like a snake draft. So I'll go to the next category right now, and then we'll
Okay.
kick it back over to
Here,
you.
let's do this, Albert. We'll do one more each, and we'll save a couple of these for the next episode since we've kind of waxed poetic too
Good
long.
idea.
We'll do two more, and we'll do it. You go first.
I've got history next on mine, so let's roll with that one. This is just general NBA history. Tim Duncan is the third greatest basketball player of all time.
Behind who? LeBron and Jordan?
I assumed that, I didn't know where you stood on the LeBron John thing, so I didn't want to go there and just went for a third so we can keep it nice and easy. Or at least
That's fair.
not as aggressive as it would have been with John and
Regardless
LeBron,
of the
maybe.
order, one, two, both
Yeah,
of them, though, is
exactly.
what we're saying.
Yeah.
I think there's a better argument to be made than people give Duncan credit for. There's a better argument to be made for Duncan than Kobe, I think, as much as a lot of people probably won't like that take. People don't realize how good Duncan was. Like, one of the best offensive rebounders of all time. Like, frankly, the way people talk about Dennis Rodman just because he played with Michael Jordan is how they need to talk about Tim Duncan, but like on steroids. Not him, but in terms of the way they speak of these two players. People just kind of chalk it up to the Spurs and Pop and this, that, and the third. But like, Manu Ginobili was not the greatest thing coming out of the draft. He was a left-handed, overseas player that at a time where that wasn't, what it is now by any means. You know what I mean? There was a lot of question marks around taking overseas players back then, and especially a left-handed one that was, anyways, about Manu. Same with Tony Parker, in a sense. Like, he was a smaller point guard. And it is very, very, very underestimated and underspoken about the like, it is not Pop and Parker and Ginobili made Tim Duncan. No, 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 no. David Robinson helped make Pop, and because Duncan was drafted and got to learn from David Robinson and Pop, Tim Duncan carried a torch and made all the rest of it possible. Like, I'm gonna disagree because I think there's, gosh.
There's also Kareem gets thrown around a lot. I mean,
That's the thing is Kareem and Wilt. You got to consider the Magic. Like, you got to consider these guys.
I think it's for sure. I appreciate at least that you said you can see the vision I had kind of.
No, absolutely. Like, to me, Duncan is like a surefire top 10 NBA player of all time. Let me say that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Okay, let me get one more in here and we'll get out of here. And I kind of liked this segment to end the show. I think we're going to keep trying to do this. Let us know what you guys think in the comments. But this would be an interesting one to end on. This is just Hornets in general. Kobe White. We were talking about Stirtz earlier and potential fit with Kobe White. They still got to resign Kobe White. Sam Vecini said this. Didn't really love Vecini's take here. Said that he just doesn't see why they should bring Kobe White back at, I think he said less than $25 million too. Like, to me, if they get Kobe under 25 a year AAV, they've won a little bit. But my question is, 30 is the limit to me. If he demands 30 starting when they have his bird rights and we're going 8% increase year over year, if Kobe refuses less than 30 in year one, I think they got to let him walk. Would you agree or disagree with that?
This is a tough one because in a vacuum I don't think Kobe is a 30 million plus player, but then you look at the roster the Hornets have and they need him so badly. They need a guy who can just take a little bit of creation off of LaMelo, who can hit some tough shots from time to time. I mean, he was huge, obviously, in both of the Miami games towards the end of the year, the play-in one and the one in the regular season. 30 million is a lot, though. I mean, I looked when I saw this in the podcast doc a couple of minutes before we started. I looked who else gets paid, like roughly 30 million. And you get like guys like Brandon Ingram. You still have a Jordan Poole in here. You have Bam, who's on 32.6 right now. De'Aaron Fox. And you look at De'Aaron Fox, for example. He's the second option in San Antonio. You could pretty confidently argue that. Is Kobe the second option for this team? He's the fourth, really, if you just go through the whole roster. And so, as much as they need him, if he wants more than 30, I'd just rather see who I can get in the draft and maybe even get two guys who can create a little bit. Maybe a big man who can just bring the ball up the court at least. And then I'd let him go. I'd have to because 30 mil or more is just a ton of money for a guy that's going to come off the bench.
Now, I want to put at least one caveat in here and say that if we're talking about like a 2-year deal, I could be okay with it. I wouldn't love it at all. But if we're talking about like a 3-year, especially a 4-year, it's probably going to be a 3-year deal. That's if they do it, it'll probably be a 3-year deal for Kobe. I would imagine, like they did with Musa. They just like that. They did it with Miles. I'm pretty sure they just like that the 3-year deals. Jeff Peterson, it seems like. I also agree with this one that they'd have to let him walk, but I'm so on the fence about it because you're so right. I mean, respect, salute to Colin Sexton for what it's worth, but like,
absolutely.
Oh my goodness! But I want to say it was one of the first games after the deadline because Kobe White didn't come back right after the deadline, but a couple games afterwards he did.
Yeah.
And it was just immediately, I can't think of the game, but I remember so specifically on the strong side, Kobe White gets a ball screen, right above, free throw line, elbow extended. And he takes it to the basket and like absolutely rifles it one-handed to Grant Williams over in the opposite side, weak side corner. Grant buried it, and there is no, I think Nada Edwards might have said this on Twitter, so I don't want to take credit for somebody else's thought, but if you had been paying attention to the Hornets at that point and you saw White make some of the passes he was making, it wasn't just me. Like, it's hard not to notice, hey, Colin Sexton wasn't doing this.
Yeah.
And
just
I think go ahead.
The size advantage that Kobe has over Colin as well, just the
underrated
general
rebounder too, Kobe White.
Yeah,
I think
exactly. That's another point to it, that he's just a better defender. I'm not saying Kobe White is like a good defender, or even like a solid one. I don't think he's like up there. But Colin Sexton, apart from the effort which he always brought, I would never take that away from him. But he's just an undersized guard who's never gonna keep anybody in front of him, pretty much. So
Kobe White's effort gets him further, I think, than Colin Sexton's did. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
But just to kind of put a bow on these thoughts here with Kobe, that's really hard because I think it's going to land between the 23 to 26 or 7 high end is where I think it's going to end up. If they can get him closest to 20, they've won, and it says a lot about what Kobe White believes about the system. I'll say, if they let him walk, I saw some people say that. Like I said, Vicini mentioned that, and I don't see it. I really don't. They'd
really have to trust one of the guys in the draft to let him go. I think.
Well, they would, but it's not just that, man. Ever since LaMelo's been here, they've needed a real backup point guard. Straight up. Dennis Smith Jr. was really good, but then LaMelo got hurt in February of that 22-23 season, and DSJ was great, but they didn't bring him back the next year. And since then, I've said this on this show, I think, before, they've needed a backup point guard since Jeremy Lin in 2015, 2016, man. Yeah, it wasn't him. It wasn't him. But truly, they needed it with Kemba, and they've needed it the same amount of time LaMelo's been in the league, and like, I think it would be borderline disrespectful to LaMelo, given the chemistry Kobe White built with those guys so quickly in less than half a season. I think it would almost be disrespectful to the guys who were like this close last year to not bring Kobe White back. After the play-in, man, like, he deserves another shot with this team. He's UNC guy, national champion, all-time leading North Carolina high school basketball scorer. Like, I love a good story, you know what I mean? And like, there's no better place for Kobe White to be with Charlotte, not just in fit, but just vibes. Vibes matter too, but fit is also perfect, so vibes can be weighed in heavier.
I like that as a closing statement. Vibes matter too. I can agree with that.
You make a shirt. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up. We went longer than we anticipated, but this is a good episode. Let us know what you guys think. Let you know what you guys think about the draft. Please leave a like. Please comment. Subscribe. Helps us out. And we're going to keep trying to do these every other day or every other third day, whatever it ends up being. And I hope you guys are looking forward to as much as we are. We'll see you next time. Peace.
See ya.